I don't know about you, maybe it is just me, but it seems to me that 2017 has consisted of more than 7 weeks. It seems to me like more than 4 weeks. 4 weeks have passed since the inauguration of a new president. Personally, I'm pretty isolated from a lot of the destruction taking place and the destruction that will take place. I'm not going to be deported. I'm not going to be detained at airports. I'm not going to be, nor have I ever been, targeted because of my race or ethnicity or religion. But even so, even for me, the idea of this ever-worsening reality being reality for the next 4 years, when it has been 4 weeks, is sickening. And it shakes me to my foundations. So when I hear Jesus talking about foundations today, the foundations of our lives, I get the sense that I, and maybe all of us, would do well to pay some attention. There are those, he says, who build their house on rock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, he said, but it did not fall because it had been founded on rock. But others, he says, have built their house on a foundation of sand. And when the storm comes, everything washes away. We are living in a time of serious rain and floods and heavy winds, and our foundations are being tested. There are times in our lives that we can get away with building our lives on foundations of sand, if just for a while, on the foundation of unhealthy relationships or great distance from God, desperately holding things together, ignoring your neighbors in the world, not taking care of yourself, not learning or growing. That can work for a time, but we are not living in those times. We are living in a time of serious rain and floods and heavy winds, and we all in this room know that our foundations need to be strong. Because if they are not, we will blow away, and we will burn out, and we will not be much good for ourselves or for anybody else. Speaking for me, I know that my foundations need some work. Maybe yours do too. I'll let you decide that for yourself. But I do believe that this is a time to be mindful of the foundations upon which we build our lives, our communities, our nation, our world. To ask, are we building our lives on rock or on sand? Can we withstand the storm? Believe it or not, we are not the first people in human history to ask that question. We are not the first people in human history to wonder if our foundations might need some work. About 2,500 years ago, our ancestors in faith, the people of Israel, were brutally defeated by the Babylonian Empire. Their temple in Jerusalem was flattened to the ground. Their social elites were carted away into exile in a strange land, and everybody else was left to scratch a living upon a destroyed and pillaged land. For them, it was a bleak time. It was a time of serious rains and floods and heavy winds that I do not know. And it was a time when the exiled people, ripped from everything that they knew, needed to look at their foundations again, needed to do some rebuilding. Because before, a big part of their foundation had been faith in their nation, trust in their king, trust in the magnificence of their temple. And when they no longer had faith in their nation or trust in their ruler, what is left? When the house has been clear swept away, what is left? The 137th Psalm says that the exiles wept by the rivers of Babylon. There we wept. And so they began to search for new foundations for their lives, for their community. And they asked these difficult kinds of questions like, what matters the most in life? What is the most important? What matters for a community and for a nation? What kind of people do we want to be? What kinds of lives do we want to lead? These are questions I've been asking myself a lot recently. And so 2,500 years ago, these ancestors of ours and their struggles and their questions wrote some stuff down. Some stuff that we happen to still have today in the Bible. They reached deep into the wisdom and stories of their own people, and they added their own wisdom. And in the process, one of the things they wrote was your favorite book of the Bible, Leviticus. A few weeks ago, Pastor Caleb preached on loving your enemies, which was actually the gospel text that the lectionary assigned today. I actually don't want to preach on loving my enemies, so it's okay. But the truth is, when that happened, I did not either jump for joy that I could focus this morning on Leviticus. Because there is a lot of stuff in Leviticus that does not translate well for our ears. Things like animal sacrifice and blood sprinkling and bodily emissions and burnt sacrifices and prohibitions on male same-sex relationships that I ignore. But I actually do believe that the book of Leviticus, from which we heard a very small portion today, offers us a lot of wisdom as we try to rebuild strong foundations for our lives. The story in Leviticus is set earlier than when it was written. It was set during another hard time when the early Israelite people were wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. 40 years after being liberated from slavery in Egypt. And Leviticus is written as a set of often painstaking, incredibly detailed commands from a very type A God to Moses, the leader of the people, about how they will live their lives, about how they will live every part of their lives. And what we heard today are some ethical commandments that I actually, on first reading, was pretty cool with. Things like not to harvest every inch of your land or strip your vineyard totally bare, so that people without money or people moving through your land have access to food. Or to not steal and deal falsely or lie to one another. Not to defraud your neighbor or to unjustly hold the wages of laborers. Not to revile people who are deaf or blind. Not to render unjust judgments. Not to slander. Or as one translation says, not to profit by the blood of your neighbor. And of course, the commandment that Jesus himself will quote, to love your neighbor as yourself. If we're talking about Leviticus quotes on protest signs, you shall not profit by the blood of your neighbor, works pretty well. Could be held up in a lot of places. I suspect that if we lived in a society that came anywhere near these commandments, things would look a lot different for us. This is a pretty good start on a strong foundation. For behind all of the weird and hard stuff and sprinkling blood in Leviticus, there's a vision of something called holiness. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. You shall be holy. What? It's one thing to say that God is holy. That is easy enough to get behind. And in Leviticus, God is holy because God is perfect and powerful, yet unfailingly good. But to say that people should also be holy? Frankly, I'm not sure I want to be holy. It doesn't sound like a lot of fun. It sounds like a lot of work. Maybe we could just stick with God being holy. Like many churchy words, holiness is a word that tends to get thrown around without a whole lot of understanding. But it really has a deep and life-giving meaning. The word holy comes from an Old English word meaning sacred, godly, and saintly. And it comes from ancient European words meaning things like whole and healthy. I can get behind being holy if it means that I am whole and healthy. If it means that our communities are whole and healthy. That is a foundation I would like to build, that I would like to live my life on. That is a holy foundation. Since the people who wrote Leviticus, people seeking after holiness, after wholeness and health, were people. And since it was 2,500 years ago, halfway around the world, not everything they read was fantastic. Not everything I read was fantastic. And many things don't translate well today. But in all of that distance, there is an invitation for you and me to consider the foundations we want to build for our lives. Foundations that will stand up to wind and rain and floods and immigration and customs enforcement and would-be dictators. Foundations that will stand up to overwhelming fear and hatred. The wisdom of the whole book of Leviticus is that building a holy foundation requires some deep attention to every single part of our lives. Because how one person acts affects the whole community. And how a whole community is structured affects each person. Leviticus pays painstaking attention to things like how we worship and pray and connect to God. How our religious institutions work. How leaders are selected for the community. Our bodies, our sexual relationships, our ethics. How we use our time and plan our calendar. How we take Sabbath. How we make up for our mistakes and change our behavior. Everything matters. Everything is connected. And all of these things, like it or not, are parts of the foundations of our lives. The only question is whether they add more sand or whether they add more rock. Because we are surrounded by foundations of sand. We see those foundations in persons with deep and fervent prayer lives who want to see immigrants deported. In those who are beloved in public and destructive at home. In churches that fail to work for justice. In those who are incredibly productive but never take Sabbath or connect with God. Those who speak out for justice but coerce people into sex. Churches that sweep misbehavior under the rug, and a nation built on the exploitation of some for the ease of others. These are the foundations at offer in our society. And they are sandy foundations. The good news is that we don't have to accept them. We don't have to accept those foundations. We can instead look for the strong and holy foundations that are offered to us by a holy God. We can find wholeness and health. We can develop a deep prayer life and work deeply for justice. We can be ourselves. We can take Sabbath and contribute to society. Build healthy relationships and strong communities. learn forgiveness and mercy, and hold people accountable. We probably can't do it all in this life, 100%. But we can work. We can work towards that vision. And we are not alone. We are not alone as we seek holy foundations in times of rain and floods and wind. We have the support of our ancestors in faith who surround us and cheer us on even today. Ancestors who are not strangers to the challenges and suffering of life. Ancestors who also worked for whole and healthy communities. Ancestors who trusted that we could figure out what to keep and what to drop from books like Leviticus. We have the support of one another in a community of faith where we learn how to pray and march and call cruddy representatives, where we develop leadership and learn about healthy sexuality, where we teach children and adults, where we worship and cry, where we respect bodies of all kinds, and where we are constantly reminded by a pastor who never stops telling us to take Sabbath. The church, imperfect as it is a holy gift from God. For most importantly in this journey, we have the unending support of a holy God who offers a vision of wholeness and health. A God who will never fail nor forsake us. A God who joins us in the mess of our lives, working alongside us to build holy foundations for our lives. Foundations that will not be moved, come what may. Foundations that will not be moved, come what may. We are not alone. We are not alone. Thanks be to God. Amen.